in the American League playoffs. More troubling news for the UCLA football program. Backup quarterback Pierce Clarkson was arrested on suspicion of felony assault with a deadly weapon. LAPD said the weapon was not a gun. Clarkson posted a $30,000 bail. A court hearing is set for October 3rd. Clarkson has been suspended from the team pending the outcome of his case. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in another edition of our thought-provoking Thursdays. What an amazing 24 hours we've had as a nation. In this moment on September 11th, we can't forget the events that were seared into our nation's memory and our body politic as a result of 19 terrorists who hijacked our planes, flew them into the World Trade Center, flew them into the Pentagon, landed because of some courageous passengers who were able to do everything within their power to take control over an aircraft in a field in Pennsylvania. There are these turning points in our public and national memory that serve as a catalyst for us coming together as a nation. 9/11, September 11th, was an extraordinary event. A very divided Congress, a very divided nation. Not all of us agreed upon the leadership of George W. Bush. But 9/11 was such a violent attack on our nation's psyche that we moved beyond our differences to address the immediate needs of our national security. Before 9/11, it's almost impossible to imagine the world that existed. At that time, the nation's aviation system, every governor, every mayor of every city, and every major airport in the nation were in charge of local aviation security. Local contractors, some local police officers, different standards in all of the airports in the United States of America. contracts, contacts. How do you get in? How do you get out? When I was growing up, I could walk my father right from the moment we dropped him off at the gate, right to the gate. But as a result of 911, and even before 911, a series of terror attacks in the 70s and the 80s led to the idea of better coordination. But 911 created something called the Transportation Safety Administration. Now, there's a new generation of Americans who cannot imagine not walking past men and women wearing blue shirts, the same color slacks, many of them wearing badges, performing a basic function that not even one bottle of water anywhere in the global aviation system can make it onto an aircraft because we simply took control of aviation security to keep that event from never happening again. Seared in our memories. I was on the floor of the Congress when those two planes hit the World Trade Center, and a rumor was going around that a plane was heading in the direction of the Capitol. We were ordered to leave, but we never recovered. We were a very different people the next day. Yesterday was a searing event in the memory forever of the American people. Charlie Kirk's body is now going to be flown back from Utah to, I believe, Arizona on Air Force Two. Who am I to suggest that it is a little bit an overstatement? I don't believe Mr. Kirk served his country in that capacity. He was a political activist. All of us are in our great system, and that high honor and now the Presidential Medal of Freedom to be awarded to him for some of the vitriol that he himself had no and unapologetically maintained even in his last breath certainly suggests that such a high honor, which has never been bestowed, quite frankly, upon members of our own military who find themselves in these life-threatening and life-ending situations. Air Force Two doesn't show up and pick them up, or Air Force One and bring them home, unless, of course, you're a former or the president of the United States. There is a difference. With that said, our condolences to the Kirk family, and this moment in our nation's history, we are being asked to be bigger and better than the moment itself, to restore our faith in each other, to reflect, and to try and make our broken pieces stronger in their broken places. I reached a few moments ago in my little library and grabbed a book written by Viktor Frankl titled Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl wrote this book as a Holocaust survivor, and when we come forward, I do want to share with you some insights provided in that book before I introduce our three guests who will be participating in this special edition of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money. I did not know what I was going to do. I was scared.
Agnes caught a break and found out about Optima tax relief.
But when I called Optima Tax, they guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can. And they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
No more telephone calls, no more letters. Optima Tax took care of everything. I can finally sleep at night. I was stress-free.
Agnes was finally free from her IRS nightmare.
It was like a burden was lifted off of me, and it was a great feeling.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone because they got me debt-free from owing the IRS any more money.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors when you need more comfort for yourself.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on September 11th, 2025. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. One of the most amazing books ever written. More than 12 million copies sold at the hour that I purchased it. It is from the world-famous medical doctor and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor. And the way in which he chose to do his time in a concentration camp did not deal with the horrors of the Holocaust itself. There have been plenty of books written about that and all that it represented. To maintain his sanity while incarcerated, he decided to observe the behavior of other men and inmates in the concentration camp and document the behavior under those circumstances as best he possibly could. One such documentation included a man who had longed to see his wife, but separated from him at Auschwitz. For months, he looked for word of the existence of his wife. And so at some point in time on that journey to maintain his sanity, he began speaking on a regular basis in the middle of the camp to a tree. He gave the tree the name of his wife. And there he would stand and talk with her for hours on end, waiting for a response from the tree. But under the circumstances of trying to survive under those conditions, that is the way that the man maintained his sanity. On another occasion, he saw men who had decided to cooperate with evil, and they got the benefits of the camp. Maybe an extra apple, maybe an extra orange, maybe some benefit like a cigarette. And their cooperation was the key to their maintaining their sanity. It came at the expense of other men in the camp who did not cooperate, including the idea that people no longer trusted them because of the benefits that they received. And yet there were other men in the concentration camp who couldn't help but help other people. They would eat less and give it to those who were starving. They would practice their professional career paths in the concentration camp itself, including but not limited to very limited medical services, some of which Dr. Frankl himself decided to provide to other inmates. He said, under the most extraordinary of circumstances, Human beings have an amazing way of trying to make a way out of essentially no way. We all saw and have heard by now the horrific events of what happened yesterday in Utah. In our own Holocaust experience, it is James Baldwin who said, "To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all of the time. To be Black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage." Today, a number of African American, historically Black colleges and universities are now closed. Their campuses are on lockdown. They have nothing to do with the events of Iowa and Utah more specifically. I apologize to the state of Iowa. Nothing to do at all with what happened on September the 10th. And yet the threats are coming in to our children at historically Black colleges and universities. We knew from the moment that it happened that the retribution would come our way for something we did not participate in, and no harm that we wished on anyone, including Mr. Kirk or his family, is now being visited upon us in ways that the society itself cannot imagine and even calculate. This is what Baldwin is saying when he says it is impossible to be a Negro or to be Black in America and not be in a constant state of rage. The National Guard are on their way to our cities. They're not on their way to Utah, where the event occurred, where the activity took place, in a predominantly white state. And all of the evidence thus far, the suspect does not look like a person of color whatsoever. And yet the vitriol of the nation could very well be visited upon African Americans. Like Viktor Frankl, we are the casual observer in the reaction of what happens in one part of the country or in the mind of the President of the United States, and the way in which he visits the harm and the vitriol upon our people. In this hour, our very special guests include our regular contributor, Mr. John Lesiotis. John Lesiotis is an advertising executive and a very close and dear friend of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and Dr. P.L. Da Silva, who comes regularly to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show from a very worldwide perspective. John Lesiotis, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse. Glad to be with you today.
Dr. Da Silva, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Looking forward to contributing as always, and today is a special day, 9/11.
Absolutely. Before I come to 9/11, let me get John Lesiotis' thoughts on what happened yesterday, which I'm sure include our condolences to the Kirk family.
Oh, absolutely.
For their loss.
Jesse, our condolences to his wife and mother, father, his young children. He's a Chicago area native, and so I'm sure he's got plenty of family in that area. So my condolences to everybody that lost a father, brother, uncle, in a senseless killing is what it was. I wanted to mention as well, Jesse, at almost the same time that happened yesterday, there was another school shooting outside of Denver again yesterday, which I think points to the big picture here of just unmitigated gun violence all around this country that we have, as citizens, have become accustomed to, and we've accepted it. And each time there's a mass shooting, I can remember starting with Sandy Hook, right? We thought, well, this is it. We'll finally come to our senses, and there'll be some type of legislation that will prohibit people that shouldn't have these guns from getting them. And yet here we are, 10 or 12 years later, and we're talking about another murder and shooting and school violence, and just a lot of violence with guns. And
I absolutely feel and share that pain. But John, if you can, and our friendship can stand the test of any moment in time, just as it will right now. John, Why are Black colleges and universities receiving threats from outside of the campus environments regarding what happened yesterday in Utah, which have nothing to do with us?
Well, I think in the environment we live in right now, the Trump administration is taught his base to punch down. And punching down means women and minorities and blaming them for the societal ills. And yet, Jesse, if you examine the gun violence in our country, specifically the last 10 years or so, you've had a young white man walk into a Black church in Georgia, sit there for Bible lessons, and then systematically massacre a bunch of Black parishioners. Shortly thereafter, I believe it was Buffalo, New York, where another white man walked into a Black grocery store and again targeted the grocery store and murdered the security guard and a number of Black patrons in the store. Following that, you've had the massacre, at the Walmart, where a person went in and again targeted Hispanics this time. But almost each and every time it's been a young white male with a gun that is targeting a minority.
Yeah, so I take that to mean that racism is a mental illness and that we ought to be spending billions of dollars educating young white men who are sick on their racism. And I think as a nation, what we've chosen to do, particularly from the African American community, is say, why don't we study our history together? We're not offering you some kind of pill to fix racism. We're saying, take a tour through the National Museum of History. Read James Baldwin. Read W.E.B. Du Bois. Read Malcolm X. Read Martin Luther King Jr. We're saying, let us learn more about each other so we can understand our stories, respect our stories, and grow from our stories to overcome what we all perceive to be a mental illness. And you've given a litany, a list, and I say this with profound respect from my friend, of white men who've walked into these Black contexts. And in these contexts, they've slaughtered parishioners, they've slaughtered people trying to get a ham sandwich in a grocery store, putting food on their own families' tables. And then at the end of the day, the next day is, we have a mental illness problem in this country, but the mental illness itself is racism, the very subject matter that the nation does not want to tackle or even talk about. I find that deeply troubling that we won't call the demon exactly what it is. Spend the billions of dollars helping people overcome their racial animus. Spend billions of dollars trying to create equality amongst the races. Help me here, John.
It seemed like a pretty simple solution, but I think that our country has never really grappled with the issues of slavery or Jim Crow. There's never been, I believe, in South Africa, apartheid, they had a Truth and Reconciliation Council, which actually talked about it. They discussed it. There were reparations, there was acknowledgement, and there was an education about what happened, and people learned. And I think this country, ever since the Civil War, has not accepted the horrors of slavery and instead have tried to whitewash it and actually revolt against it, because following the Civil War, shortly thereafter, you had the advent of the Ku Klux Klan. Once Blacks started having prosperity in, was it Kansas, the Greenwood section, then the whites burned it down. So each time the Blacks have had some type of success, it seems like there's been resentment and some type of backlash on it. And even after civil rights, there was a realignment of the parties. The Southern Democrats became Republicans because of civil rights, basically. Mm. So there, and then you could take it one step further. And after we had our first African-American president, a lot of people went to Trump. So we've always, since the advent of this country, had white people have had animosity toward Blacks and have blamed them for a lot of ills of the country.
PL, your initial thoughts on this question as well?
Yes, I think it's not a mental health issue. These people are domestic terrorists, and we should call it as such. And the big issue is that we uphold the Second Amendment and as something inviolate and holy in the Constitution, which protects the right of the people to keep and bear arms. You just count the dead people and kids that have been killed because of that Second Amendment. And then you have to ask the question, we have to ask ourselves and we have to ask other people, is it worth it to have such an amendment in the Constitution? Just do the body count. Look at the destroyed families, okay, including Kirk, who got killed yesterday. The fact of the matter is that you can easily obtain firearms, which is crazy. I mean, in Europe, Belgium is the only other country where you can actually get weapons like that, right? And in America, I think there are more guns than people. So I think the problem of all of this madness, it's not insanity. We should be calling them domestic terrorists and slamming them in jail, prosecuting them. But the problem is that Donald Trump has appointed a 22-year-old clerk who used to flip burgers before he went to the Heritage Foundation. And his only claim to fame and experience is that he's a MAGA supporter, diehard MAGA supporter, with absolutely no experience in counterterrorism. So that unit, which is supposed to monitor all of these gun violence, school shootings, the church shooting, even yesterday's assassination, right? What did he do when he was appointed? He fired over 70% of his staff, whose job was to monitor what's actually happening so that we could try to head off some of these atrocities, right? And the powers that be in the White House thought to appoint a 22-year-old neophyte who has no clue, according to the top brass that I've been talking to from U.S. Naval Intelligence, from Rear Admiral Norman Robert Hayes and others, that this is a totally idiotic state of affairs.
PL, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more of this very important conversation on KBLA Talk 1580.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. It's still unclear if President Trump will send the National Guard to Chicago. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says he's glad Trump is rethinking the move, while Black Mayor Brandon Johnson says he has not been in contact with the administration.
Nothing has been communicated with us, and that's what the problem has been.
Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security has launched an immigration crackdown in Chicago. Several HBCUs, including Alabama State, Hampton University, Virginia State University, and Spelman, are all on lockdown after receiving threats. Classes and activities are suspended, with students and staff ordered to shelter in place. And today marks the 24th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. On this day in 2021, the 20th anniversary, Presidents Obama, Clinton, and then President Biden, along with their wives, stood together at the 9/11 Memorial for a moment of silence, a powerful show of unity. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Saving money on tires and auto repair services is a big deal. That's why Big O offers a low price guarantee on tires with big deals like this. Now buy 3 select tires, get the 4th tire free with paid installation during our September to Remember, now at Big O Tires.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicola Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Loss Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land loss before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandloss.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Some things can steal your sunshine. Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In this first hour, my very special guests include two of my great friends, John Lesiotis as well as P.L. Da Silva. I really want to read their bios and resumes to me, but most of you have heard from both of them before, and I think that the time is better spent on this day addressing some spurious logic. How there are hardly any Black people in Utah. And even the suspect that has been captured on video wearing a black outfit and some dark shades, at least to me, looks like a white man. But Spelman College today is on lockdown all the way in Atlanta. Alabama A&M on lockdown. Black colleges around the country receiving bomb threats and threats of terror. Hampton University on lockdown. We're all looking for some crazy white retaliatory action that the president said that there must be vengeance, there must be retribution. And the retribution as a result of what happened in Utah 24 hours ago between white folks in the MAGA world, listening to a MAGA speech from a MAGA activist, some nut killed him in Utah. They're not looking for an African American. They're looking for a white man with a long gun. And how this ends up all the way in Atlanta, Georgia, North Carolina. And how the logic then shifts to the retribution having something to do with us. I find the logic here and the leap to be more than extremely difficult for me to handle. And that's what Baldwin is talking about when he says it's impossible to wake up as a black person in America and not be in some form of rage every single day. Now, so Donald Trump is prepositioning troops at this hour in the city of Chicago under the guise of trying to find illegal immigrants. But that sliding rule has now he wants to fight crime in Chicago, fight crime in Los Angeles. And that's going to end up in the form, John Lesiotis, P.L. De Silva, of some white guy walking into one of our churches or grocery stores with the possibility of a racial mental illness and shoot up black folks. PL, I'm not leaping over to the Second Amendment. Don't take me there. I've been through enough of these school shootings now to know Second Amendment. I want to deal with those of us who had nothing to do with Utah. How do we get there? How do we get here?
Pure and simple. The original sin of the United States of America is racism. So it's in the DNA of this country. The pioneers who came, who exterminated the indigenous population. There was a Holocaust in America for the pilgrims who came over, for them to take over the land. They massacred the indigenous people. So then there was slavery because they needed free labor to work the plantations. So they sent out in West Africa, they caught people, brought them over in atrocious conditions, throwing some of them dead or alive overboard. And that's how we have the African American population who were brought in as slaves, as property. So there's so many terrible things that have happened in this country.
So we're the scapegoats. We're just the scapegoats for everything. I mean, anything that goes wrong, it has something to do with our existence. I mean, I'm really struggling with that today, PL. I mean, I'm not trying to back you into a corner. I don't want to back my guests into a corner. I want you guys to always participate in the show, but I'm struggling with it. And I think a lot of black people are. I mean, especially if we have children today at an HBCU that's under lockdown. We drop our kids off at train stations and take them to college in the fall, just like everybody else takes their kids to college. No one's locking down Harvard today. No one's locking down Yale today or Texas A&M today. Or the University of Texas is not on lockdown. We're on lockdown because of something that happened in Utah. I need a better answer for that.
We are like a lightning rod, right? So when lightning strikes, HBCUs and black kids going to university are going to be struck by lightning, or has the potential to be struck by lightning, because of the racist roots in this country that white folks I beg your pardon, John Lesiotis, white folks cannot abide the fact that young black and brown kids would better educate themselves and get ahead. And this is this kind of racism combined with envy and hatred.
Yeah.
There's been a systematic cultivation of hatred in this country, and we do not do anything, or we do not do enough. And our religious leaders should be held to account as well, not just only our elected representatives, many of whom are corrupt. Our religious leaders must be held accountable for this moral malaise that is, it's like the Swamp Thing. You know, in this country, it's that racism, it's that visceral hatred. Why do we hate other people? Because if somebody cuts me or you, we bleed the same red blood that would, if you do the same to a white person. So why is it that we hate the other? Why are we afraid of the other? These are questions that need to be addressed in civil format. Not like saying, you know, the stuff that's coming out, the vitriol that's coming out from the White House. You know, when the representatives were killed in Minnesota, we never got a peep out of the White House. He didn't even want to go there. So what is this kind of division that is being sown, the hatred that's being sown? This country is going down the tubes fast. And having Donald Trump, you know, with the steering wheel in hand, means that we are going to go even faster.
John, we have about a minute and 30 seconds before we come forward. Let me pitch the same question to you.
Well, I couldn't agree more than Dr. De Silva. You know, America's original sin of racism that we've never dealt with. I've always not swept it under the rug, but at least in my childhood, after the civil rights, the 70s and 80s were relatively quiet. But then once Trump got into office and unleashed, in my estimation, permission to his followers to be racist again, then you saw it come out of the woodwork. People started saying stuff you never heard them say before that I think they were too embarrassed to say in public. They would be ashamed because people would shame them. And now they're saying those type of things and provoking, and the internet certainly hasn't helped with social media. And I think another thing that a lot of white people continue with the racism and treating black people poorly, because in a way it absolves the white people of the way they've always treated black people. You see, if I see a black person who commits crime in the city of Chicago, and I see all black people commit crime, they're all like that. That's just a continuation of the racism. And it makes me feel like, well, see, the racism wasn't so bad generations ago. It just absolves us from ever having to deal with the issue. And Trump certainly doesn't help it, as he never has. He's always been a racist since the Central Park 5 in New York. He's never hidden it. And now he's just given people permission to do it, and also given them the big word of retribution. He said it on the campaign trail, I am your retribution. So now there's a lot of this racism that, again, it's been under the surface, and now it's not. Now the toothpaste is out of the tube.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a sniper on the loose in America. There is a sniper on the loose in America. When we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580, we'll continue this important conversation.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm LA City Councilmember Curran Price, inviting you to the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September the 20th, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We've got 4 pavilions, 3 stages of live music, plus food, fun, and a marketplace all along historic Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Ave. Our featured acts this year are Gregory Porter, Pancho Sanchez, and Jasmine Horn at the 30th anniversary of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival, Saturday, September 20th, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. along Central Avenue between MLK Boulevard and Vernon Avenue. Come out and bring the whole family because this legendary celebration is free. For more information, go to centralabjazzfest.com. I'm LA Councilmember Curran Price, and I absolutely approve this message.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Thought-Provoking Thursdays. In our next hour, the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack. We are going to be revisiting the meta-logic of nonviolence, Martin Luther King Jr.'s logic of nonviolence in the 21st century with Dr. Johnny Mack in the next hour. But in this hour, my very special guests are none other than John Lesiotis and Dr. P.L. De Silva. Gentlemen, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in our final segment.
Thank you, Jesse.
I'm really glad both of you are here, and I do want to press not so much my guests as much as those within my listening ears. There is a sniper loose in America. A sniper has the power to control a battlefield. For those of you who may have no military training, and I don't claim to have any other than 3 or 4 years in military school when I was growing up, where I did learn how to use my rifle and target practice, and joined the National Rifle Association as a very, very young man at the time. I've since not renewed my membership many, many, many years ago. But there's a sniper free and loose in America. And anyone who knows anything about military tactics knows that a sniper can control a battlefield all by themselves. And so when the president of the United States says that he's sending federal troops and National Guardsmen to major cities in the United States, but has not articulated a plan for how he or the federal government is going to find a loose sniper in our society, no different than the DC sniper and the terror that sniper wreaked upon an entire region of our country, living in his car and shooting out of his trunk. What we witnessed yesterday is nothing but a pure form of terror. That is a shooter who can be out of the range of law enforcement, pick innocent targets, take shots at anyone they want to, and be found in another state in just a few short hours. That's just the escape route for a sniper. Unacceptable in the United States that there is a sniper free, that there is a sniper loose upon the American people, and the government has no plan whatsoever other than a hot pursuit of a suspect to rein in this behavior. This is our final segment in this hour with P.L. De Silva and my good friend John Lesiotis. Dr. De Silva, I really want to talk with you about Israel and this attack in Doha. And I think, John, you may touch upon it as well. The peace talks were taking place in Qatar, and Israel this time reached way over into the peace process and fired a missile at a non-participating country, violating all kinds of international norms. Dr. De Silva, and then John Lesiotis.
So the Israelis are the favored child of the United States, and we must take responsibility for the actions of Israel. Israel does not do anything without the know-how and the say-so of the United States of America, and we've been doing this ever since Israel was created. And they've been getting away scot-free for a long, long time, since 48. And it's high time that the Israelis and the current prime minister and his bunch of hoodlums in the Knesset are held accountable. We want a world of rules and laws where no country can reach across the sovereign borders of another country and take pot shots, blow people up, whether they're exploding, handheld devices, whatever. This cannot happen. We can't see this thing happening, because if that's the case, it's the law of the jungle, and anybody could do this. And then we can't shout foul if somebody else does it, because the Israelis are doing it all day long. They're starving the Gazans. They're shooting little kids in the head, in the genitals. They're using drones to shoot kids in the head. And similarly, they're killing all the peace mediators, people who want to bring an end to the hostilities. And there's only one simple reason, because Netanyahu knows that when the last bullet is fired, he's going to end up in jail, and all his gang of thugs are going to get thrown out of the Knesset. And this was told to me by a very senior Israeli intelligence and defense person who was in Shabak, which is Shin Bet. He's retired. And previously, he was in Sayeret Sanchanim, which is the Israeli Delta Force. It doesn't even exist on paper. And he said, when the last bullet is fired, Netanyahu is done. And he told it to me 2 years ago.
John Lesiotis, we've had programs where you and I have communicated on the idea of peace in the Middle East.
Right.
With this most recent escalation, is peace even possible anymore?
I don't see how it is at this moment, certainly. And not only because of Israel's actions and the U.S.'s complicit not only with money and arms, but intelligence, but more importantly, the lack of negotiation the U.S. is involved in, the hands-off approach. And it should be noted too, Jesse, this is not the first time that the Israelis have killed negotiators right before negotiation. This has happened at least 3 or 4 different times where they send drones, whether it's into Yemen or whether it's to Iran or Lebanon, Syria. It doesn't matter. They'll go over any of the borders to achieve their goals, which how else can you say that they want to have regional domination? They don't want to be partners with anybody. They want to control not only the entire area there, but they're taking territory as we speak in Lebanon and in Syria. So they continue expanding their footprint over there. And I don't think that at this point, the war is going to end. It's going to continue going on. And once they clean out Gaza, then they're going to go to southern Lebanon or southern Syria. And they're going to continue it because, as the doctor has said and others, that Netanyahu's favorability was in the toilet before this all happened. I believe his favorability was somewhere in the 20s, and there was trials that were going to happen. There was a lot of corruption charges, and ever since then, his favorability is up. So he knows that this is his only way to stay in office and out of jail. So unless something happens, and the U.S. has no leadership right now, we're leaving it up to Wickoff and Jared Kushner.
John, we've been praying for the hostages. Is there any hope in this current environment that the hostages will be returned?
I would like to think so, but I don't even know how many are still alive. Have they verified the number that are even still alive?
I don't know the answer to that. Dr. De Silva, any hope for the hostages in this current climate or environment?
Yes, most definitely. President Trump put pressure on Hamas to release the hostages. They said yes. Netanyahu said no. So who's the obstacle? Is it Hamas or is it Netanyahu?
Yeah, they've said that Netanyahu won't take yes for an answer. That basically Hamas has agreed to every one of the points that Israel has laid out. And not only recently, but for the past 6 months, allegedly, that Hamas has agreed to every point, but yet Israel just doesn't want to do it because that's not their end goal.
My very special guest in this hour has been Dr. P.L. De Silva. Dr. De Silva, welcome. Thank you for being on the show today.
It is my absolute pleasure. And this is a special day. It's 9/11, the 24th commemoration of 9/11. And it is important that we speak truth to power.
I agree.
Without fear or favor.
I also want to thank John Lesiotis for being on the program. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with Dr. Johnny Mack.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you, Doctor. It's a pleasure being on.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. It's still unclear if President Trump will send the National Guard to Chicago. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says he's glad Trump is rethinking the move, while Black Mayor Brandon Johnson says he has not been in contact with the administration.
Nothing has been communicated with us, and that's what the problem has been.
Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security has launched an immigration crackdown in Chicago. Several HBCUs, including Alabama State, Hampton University, Virginia State University, and Spelman, are all on lockdown after receiving threats. Classes and activities are suspended, with students and staff ordered to shelter in place. And today marks the 24th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. On this day in 2021, the 20th anniversary, Presidents Obama, Clinton, and then President Biden, along with their wives, stood together at the 9/11 memorial for a moment of silence, a powerful show of unity. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Saving money on tires and auto repair services is a big deal. That's why Big O offers a low price guarantee on tires with big deals like this. Now buy 3 select tires, get the 4th tire free with paid installation during our September to Remember, now at Big O Tires. Saving money on tires and auto repair services is a big deal. That's why Big O offers a low price guarantee on tires with big deals like this. Now buy 3 select tires, get the 4th tire free with paid installation during our September to Remember now at Big O Tires.
Is this the tackle?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said the league will need clear evidence that Clippers owner Steve Ballmer violated salary cap rules before any decision is made on whether to punish Ballmer. The league is investigating Ballmer for a $28 million endorsement deal Kawhi Leonard had with a company that Ballmer invested in. A law firm has been hired by the NBA to investigate the allegations. The LA Sparks wrap up their season tonight against the Las Vegas Aces at Crypto.com. The Sparks can avoid a losing record in the WNBA for the first time in 5 years with a win tonight. The NFL announced Thursday morning that Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson will not be fined for shoving a Buffalo Bills fan during Sunday night's game in Buffalo. Jackson pushed the fan after the fan hit Baltimore wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins in the head while Hopkins was wearing his helmet. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicola Corte. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicola Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In our second hour on Thought-Provoking Thursdays, we visit the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack. And what an amazing World House we're entering into just a week since we were together last. I've been reading a very important paper, a thesis, if you will, offered by Dr. Johnny Mack, called A Metalogic of Nonviolence, Martin Luther King Jr.'s Logic of Nonviolence in the 21st Century. He begins with a quote by Nina Ilyasov, The Politics of Volunteering, written in 2013. In it, she writes, compassion is an example of a seamless, obvious drive that has been around for all of human history. The question is how to build compassion into routine social structure so that compassionate does not feel like shoveling against sand against the tide. In it, and I do want to read part of this introduction and then posit a question that I have for Brother Mack this afternoon. Violence and nonviolence, he writes, can be understood as choices humans make when confronted with conflict. That understanding usually includes assumptions regarding the use of direct physical harm. More nuanced views hold that there are other forms. Indeed, they are value spectrums of human action and social order, how citizens act, interact amongst themselves and with the state, and how states interact with other states, from state building to empire making to peacekeeping. Thus, there are both values in action and ends, values of order, of social change, and human development. As spectrums, they each have several forms. Most people recognize violence as direct physical hurt or harm. They may be less aware of its structural systems and institutions or its cultural mores and norms. And I think, Johnny, what I tried to do in the last hour was not allow us, my guests with whom I have profound respect for and whose minds I deeply respect, move right to the liberal argument of we got to do something about the Second Amendment. Let's come on back here for a minute and explain to me now how what happened in Utah is now being visited upon as a terror cultural norm for potentially Black churches, Black colleges and universities, some of whom find themselves on lockdown today. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr.
Well, Jesse, it's always great to be on your show. And this is indeed a week for us to reckon with, not only domestically here in the United States, as you note what is being called the assassination of a young, very bright, right-leaning, to say the least, influencer of hundreds of thousands of young people. Then thinking about what is happening, as you just discussed in the last hour, around the globe with the continuing conflict in the Middle East between Israel and so much more, Jesse. This is quite a week.
Johnny, I'm still here.
I think we lost.
No, I'm still here. Johnny, so the question I want to press, because I think you were very gracious to Mr. Kirk, but it does drive, I think, a deeper question that we are all struggling with. And that is that somehow the cultural norms get visited upon us. We welcome young whites into our churches. We welcome them into our educational environments. And yet there's a larger movement here that visits upon us, not physical harm, but certainly the emotional and psychological consequences that Baldwin is talking about when he talks about different forms of rage that are visited upon Black people every single day.
Yeah. So, Jesse, let me be quick to respond to the first part of your comment. My intent was not to be gracious or not to young Mr. Kirk, rather to point out the violence that we've witnessed. Violence is a consequence of something. And the question is, what was the violence of his so-called assassination the consequence of? And what do we, to your latter part of your question, what do we do? How do we come to understand that violence in our own context as people of African descent, or otherwise listeners on your show or to your show who may not be part of the mainstream, as we call it, community in the U.S. We have suffered, as you know, these kinds of injustices and indignities, even including death. But whether that death is an immediate in-time action through some direct interpersonal violence, as Mr. Kirk met, or if it's the slow death of exclusion, of violation of our human dignity, of alienation in participating in the fruits of the productivity that our nation affords others. We people who are darker than blue.
Johnny, let me take this moment. This is KBLA Talk 1580. More with Johnny Mack when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details. Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money. I did not know what I was going to do. I was scared.
Agnes caught a break and found out about Optima Tax Relief.
But when I called Optima Tax, they guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can. And they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
No more telephone calls, no more letters. Optima Tax took care of everything. I can finally sleep at night. I was stress-free.
Agnes was finally free from her IRS nightmare.
It was like a burden was lifted off of me, and it was a great feeling.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone because they got me debt-free from owing the IRS any more money.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief. Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com. Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is the World House on Thought-Provoking Thursdays with Dr. Johnny Mack, Principal Managing Partner of the Johnny Mack Group, LLC, and Founding Director of the World House Project, Incorporated. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good to be here.
Johnny, I want to press, because I've worked my way through this very thoughtful treatise that you've written, and we're going to spend quite a bit of time with this over the next several weeks. But I also want to inject some contemporary reality in the as we work our way through this, with some examples of what has transpired in the last 24 hours, 48 hours in our national existence, so that we can make sure that we're not just speaking in the abstract here, but we're applying what we're learning from you in this hour. Johnny, there is a day by the way, let me be clear that I don't condone violence, political violence, or any form of violence whatsoever. My heart is with the Kirk family. I would pray for them just like I've prayed for people that I agree with and pray for people that I disagree with all the time. What has been visited upon this family The video that I saw today was the most horrific thing I've seen in quite some time. No human being should ever experience that, and no family should have to feel that pain. Let me get that out of the way. He's now being flown from Utah to Arizona on Air Force Two. Our nation's flags are at half staff. There is nothing politically that I can find that I agree with Charlie Kirk whatsoever. And yet I'm also witnessing a kind of martyrdom, a kind of deification of everything that I hold fundamental disagreement with. A sanctification of what he stood for is part of that deification process. I wouldn't be surprised if they brought his body to the Capitol Rotunda of the United States, which would, in my estimation, politically be some kind of abomination, but I don't put anything past them, and I certainly don't want to give them any ideas of what they're capable of doing at this hour. But it seems to me that a different kind of violence is being visited upon my spirit as a result of that which I cannot control and have no option but to observe.
Well, it seems to me, Jesse, that one of the places to start to really unpack the problem that you've laid is how we define violence. What is it actually? Again, as you read from the paper, that violence comes in many different forms, and most people think of interpersonal physical harm. Violence is just that. It's hurt and harm for sure. But it comes in many different forms, and they can be physical. But as the paper argues, it can be structural, it can be cultural. And I think the point you're making here is there's a certain cultural framework here that's taking place that imposes upon our consciousness and our lived experiences how we engage each other in the world and its systems and structures. There's a certain cultural value system that legitimizes certain forms of violence, whether it is physical. So there are structural.
I think I have a technical snafu with Johnny. Johnny?
Yes, I'm still here.
Physical and structural violence. You were making the distinction between physical and structural violence.
That's right. And cultural violence, Jesse, by definition, legitimizes structural and physical violence. That is, the cultural mores and norms that we accept as normal behavior, acceptable behavior, politically correct behavior. They legitimize the violence that we see physically and structurally. And I think that's part of what you are talking about when you look at what we are seeing in the media in lionizing this particular individual, deifying, I think is the word that you use, this individual and what he stood for. And that's the key, Jesse.
That point right there. That point right there.
Yes.
That point right there. I saw yesterday on a news program on MSNBC a level-headed, level-minded political commentator offer an analysis of the rhetoric, the reaction, the action, the stimulus that Viktor Frankl spoke of, and which Dr. King was particularly fond of, man's search for meaning. The response that we have in that context to choose our freedom, or if you will, our non-freedom, our choice. And I watched that gentleman with his carefully crafted language speak about that process that we that there are these forces, according to Newton, in the universe. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And this conservative gentleman could not have said it better than I would have said it. But I woke up this morning to a newspaper article that said he got fired for saying that on MSNBC. I said, well, can we at least talk about the consequences of the words that we use? The consequences, the thought that Martin Luther King Jr. gave, Johnny, to every word that he chose. And even in that book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, he finds himself in this discussion about the young Stokely Carmichaels and others who are talking about Black power. Dr. King says, well, you know, the reaction to that is white power. And that's not what we're trying to build here when we're talking about this world house. Words matter, Johnny.
Yeah. So, you know, the point here is that words themselves are action. They have power. And, you know, the narratives that we foster and perpetuate and give meaning to who we are, individually and collectively, even as citizens of these United States of America. You know, words have tremendous power. And thus, Jesse, there is a power struggle with the narrative today. That's part of the New World Order that we've been discussing in our previous meetings here, shows here, that there is a struggle in how we're framing what it means to be a citizen of the United States of America and who deserves that citizenship. These narratives are fostered through media, through music, and just about every form of communication. And now we have an incident, a very tragic incident, where we can continue to build upon, or certain individuals continue to build upon their preferred narrative of what it means to be a citizen of these United States of America. And that's really what we're wrestling with here. And so when one does not follow that narrative, one does not subscribe to the accepted meaning given to that narrative, then they are likely to find themselves dismissed, as you saw in your newspaper reading of that individual yesterday who simply didn't follow the right narrative.
Johnny, you know, I'm thinking about generations in this moment, because I worked, for example, when I was in Congress with Henry Hyde and many other members of Congress who had different perspectives, even within the Democratic Party. Congressman Bill Lipinski was as conservative as it gets as a Democrat, but I had to work with them, right? But when I saw Mr. Kirk's rally yesterday with a entirely different generation of young white followers who, how shall I say it? They knew not Egypt. They knew not the struggles that, you know, some of my more conservative Democratic friends and some of my right-wing Republican friends, they had a respect for Dr. King and a respect for John Lewis, and they had a respect for this process that was born of a mutual admiration over time, a mutual respect that led to our ability to get things done together. I see on the horizon, with what I saw yesterday, was a new generation of history deniers, of bait and click kind of reactionary generation of people following, you know, the late Mr. Kirk, who, well, they know not Egypt. They know not the process by which the Union became more perfect over the course of these 5 or 6 decades since the 60s. And I don't, in this moment, have an optimistic view about the country's future if denialism, which I think is another form of violence, of my existence, my history, and P.L. De Silva in the last hour also talked about the treatment of Native Americans in this process. If denying our stories are important, that too is a form of cultural violence.
Indeed, Jesse. But keep in mind that one's denial is another's affirmation. And the same argument that you give on this show, one need only move to another show on the other side of the aisle where the same claim of denying of reality is made. I mean, this is the challenge. This is what one author calls the disunited states of America now. We are so divided in our points of view. And the genius, if we can call it that, of Mr. Kirk was being able to capture the attention of an emerging generation, much of it too young to even understand the consequences of what is being, proffered as the norm for our nation, fostering ideas that otherize and alienate those who don't agree with them. These are what King called very difficult days. And it takes an incredible amount of attention, and education to overcome what's being shoved down our throats through social media, through normal cable network and other means of communication.
I was thinking about, and I know we just have a couple of minutes before we come forward. I was thinking about, the "I Have a Dream" speech. I loved this particular speech, and you referenced the Rip Van Winkle comments that Dr. King gave at Oberlin College in "Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution." We'll come to that when we come forward, but I do want to deal with this historical narrative over time. When Dr. King says, "Today we stand in the shadow of a man who 100 years ago set the slaves free." That would be 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. But 100 years later, Dr. King looks over time to put the story in time, which is 1963. On a sweltering day in August, he said that we are still not free, that we still find ourselves shackled, that we still find ourselves in these conditions in the Deep South. We find ourselves isolated in our own land. And so he's in time when he makes that statement, but he's looking at it over time. And when I look at over time to the end timeness of where we find ourselves now, I can't imagine that Dr. King would have ever imagined that Second Reconstruction would be coming to an end so quickly. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Johnny Mack. We're going to be looking at the metalogic of nonviolence.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore is condemning the Wednesday shooting death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University, calling it heinous political violence. Moore urged peaceful resolution of political differences and offered prayers to Kirk's family, stressing the need for unity and peace. Sue Carnell will become Michigan's first Black woman interim state superintendent on October 3rd. She steps in as the state works to finalize a contract with Glenn Maleko, who was chosen to replace Dr. Michael Rice, but may remain in Dearborn through December. And rapper Kendrick Lamar is now a two-time Emmy winner. He just earned the Creative Emmy for Outstanding Music Direction for his Apple Music Super Bowl 59 halftime show, alongside musical director Tony Russell. Lamar first won the award in 2022 for the Super Bowl 56 halftime show with Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and 50 Cent. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Saving money on tires and auto repair services is a big deal. That's why Big O offers a low price guarantee on tires with big deals like this. Now buy 3 select tires, get the 4th tire free with paid installation during our September to Remember. Now at Big O Tires.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said the league will need clear evidence that Clippers owner Steve Ballmer violated salary cap rules before any decision is made on whether to punish Ballmer. The league is investigating Ballmer for a $28 million endorsement deal Kawhi Leonard had with a company that Ballmer invested in. A law firm has been hired by the NBA to investigate the allegations. The LA Sparks wrap up their season tonight against the Las Vegas Aces at Crypto.com. The Sparks can avoid a losing record in the WNBA for the first time in 5 years with a win tonight. The NFL announced Thursday morning that Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson will not be fined for shoving a Buffalo Bills fan during Sunday night's game in Buffalo. Jackson pushed the fan after the fan hit Baltimore wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins in the head while Hopkins was wearing his helmet. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Thinking about going electric? Now is the perfect time. Electric vehicles cost less to run, don't need gas, and need fewer repairs than gas-powered cars. You can also save with federal and state tax credits, and in some areas, qualify for rebates on home charging stations. To learn more, visit www.breathesocal.org. That's www.breathesocal.org. Imagine a world without heart disease and stroke, where every person has the chance to live a full and healthy life. Join us for a walk to save lives at the American Heart Association's Greater Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Saturday, September 20th at the Rose Bowl. Every step made and every dollar raised means more people learning CPR, more life-saving research, and more time with the ones we love. Sign up at heartwalkla.org. The LA Heart and Stroke Walk is sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Thought-Provoking Thursdays. We're in the World House with Johnny Mack. Dr. Mack, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Johnny Mack will be with us momentarily. I think I might have lost Johnny. Johnny, I believe, is still in Kinshasa, Zaire. He's in the Congo at this hour. And so we've had a small technical difficulty, but I do want to comment on this generational question that I raised at the outset of the program. Johnny, in this amazing paper, refers to a speech that Dr. King delivered at Oberlin College, where he references Rip Van Winkle. And I really want everyone to hear this really carefully. I know Johnny's re-entering the studio momentarily. In this speech in Oberlin, Dr. King references Rip Van Winkle. And when Johnny put it in this paper, I had to do a little bit of research and a little bit of mathematics. The most fascinating part of this speech that Dr. King gives was his recognition. And many of us have heard the story from Washington Irving of Rip Van Winkle. This is the old man who went up to the top of the mountain, fell asleep, and woke up and was confused. But Dr. King said the most important part of the story is the part of the story that we overlook. When Rip Van Winkle began up the hill, he stopped at the inn at the bottom of the hill. And at the bottom of the hill, men were drinking and having beer and coffee and rapping and talking local gossip and talk. There was a picture of King George III hanging on the wall outside of the inn. Then when Rip Van Winkle went up to the top of the hill, and when he arose, he found his way back down the hill, and there was a picture of George Washington on the hill, on the inn. And Dr. King says that's the most important part of the story. I had to do a little bit of mathematics right there. Johnny Mack made me do it when I read this amazing paper. And that means that when Rip Van Winkle went up the hill, it was around 1774, 1775, maybe 1776. But when he comes down the hill, George Washington is the president of the United States. That would be around 1789. Well, what does that tell us? It tells us when we back from 1789 to about 1769 that when he went up the hill, it was actually about 1769. And he says the most important part of the story is that when he went up the hill, there was a king. When he came down, we lived in a republic and George Washington was president. That's about 20 years that he slept. That means that an entire generation in just 20 years can forget where they've come from and can have no idea what the nature of the revolution was. When they went up the hill, we were not a republic trying to become a democracy. When he came down the hill, we were a republic trying to become a democracy. One thing is for certain, though, Johnny, when he went up the hill, there was slavery when Van Winkle went to sleep. And when he came down the hill, there was still slavery. It is the Negro who's actually consistent in the story, even though the world for the white man, Rip Van Winkle, had profoundly changed. And then Dr. King slaps us upside the head with the hammer. We must remain awake through a revolution. The great challenge of every generation is that every single day a revolution is taking place, but too many of us are asleep. Johnny Mack. Johnny, I think you have to unmute yourself. But once you do, I think we will be live in concert. Johnny,
I think we are, Jesse. I'm so sorry.
Not a problem, sir.
So the way you framed it in so many ways is so relevant to us today, isn't it? And so many of us are sleepwalking through a revolution. Some of us are sleep marching through a revolution, right? We're missing the very change that's taking place. You know, as you know, King called for a revolution of values, and we're sleeping through a revolution of values even as it is taking place today. What we are seeing today is a reordering of the values that we have come to know and understand. Those values that so many of our fathers and mothers and grandparents and so many others worked for, labored over, even died for. And those values are for justice and equality. They are for equal opportunity. They are for a democratic process. And we're sleeping through the very revolution that is taking place. But that revolution is not our own. People who have successfully engaged in a revolution are not the ones King had in mind. And they are indeed being quite successful in that revolutionary process. The question is, what values are they fostering? King called for a revolution of values, and they heard his call, Jesse. They heard his call, and they ordered their steps. They organized themselves. They mobilized themselves. They gerrymandered their districts. They took advantage of the electoral process, and they have taken charge of the courts, all to establish this revolution that reorders the very edifice that King said must be reordered, while too many of us have been asleep.
That's so profound, Johnny, because if you think about American history from that perspective, this nation has known more decades in unfreedom than it has known in freedom. I'm 60 years old, and all I have known is some form of freedom. I have never known, born in 1965, what unfreedom is. And yet the natural cultural reaction to the majority is a system of unfreedom that they are far more familiar with than what women are familiar with, African Americans, the Native American and indigenous population, the LGBT community in our own nation. Our freedom, the freedom that we enjoy in this time, is the narrowest and shortest part of our nation's history. The history of all of us being silent and having nothing to say, nothing to fight for, no questions that we can raise about the direction of the country. There is a longer history of that than there is a history of our revolution for new values and changing the social edifice.
Jesse, there's so much to say here once again. Why are we, to use your term, unfree? I'm reminded of Nelson Mandela's statement after being released from his 27-year term, his 27-year incarceration. Mandela said, "We are not free, we are only free to be free." I didn't quite quote it exactly the way he said it. We have the freedom to be free. In other words, Mandela was saying freedom is something we must work for. It's not something that's given to us. It is a daily struggle, and it is being watchmen and women on the wall to ensure that that freedom is not jeopardized by those who would benefit themselves and imprison us, not so much in iron prisons, but through the systems and structures and processes that determine our life chances. And so this unfreedom is a freedom that violates our very capacity to realize our fullest potential. And if we're not careful to watch and to work to ensure that those freedoms are protected, we lose them. And that's what King was referencing when he talked about Rip Van Winkle sleeping for 20 years through a great revolution, not being a watchman on the wall to protect his freedom.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to The World House with Dr. Johnny Mack on Thought Provoking Thursdays. More with Dr. Johnny Mack when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least likely to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2025, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Your paycheck and bank accounts are at risk of being seized. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your options, and it's free. If you owe back taxes, have years of unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better, business or personal, call the experts at Republic Tax Relief while there's still time. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. The call is free. Call their hotline number now, 800-260-3330. That's 800-260-3330. Find out if you qualify today, 800-260-3330, or go to republictaxrelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Thought Provoking Thursdays on the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack on KBLA Talk 1580. Johnny Mack is the principal and managing partner of the Johnny Mack Group, founding director of the World House Project, Inc. He's extremely well traveled throughout the world. Johnny, where are you today, by the way?
Jesse, I flew in from Kinshasa last night, so I'm back in Atlanta today.
All right, Johnny, I can't keep up with him, but I am so grateful that he is safely home. Johnny, I in this moment, as I've read through this paper, and we're going to really build a series around what Johnny is trying to help us understand about Dr. King's logic and the logical extensions of it, even though we know that, like Jesus of Nazareth, Dr. King did not live long enough to fulfill and share with us all that he could have accomplished. Neither did Jesus of Nazareth. His 3-year ministry was cut short by crucifixion, just like Martin Luther King Jr.'s work was cut short by assassination. But when I look at this, and it challenged me to go to Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which Dr. King had read exhaustively as well. I'm sensing from reading this paper along with Frankl, and I'm experiencing a new freedom. And I say a new freedom because I don't find any hope what's happening with, for example, what's happening in the MAGA world. None whatsoever. Don't agree with it at all. Don't agree with its direction. I'm also not experiencing any enthusiasm or hope in that which I've been trained to believe speaks for me. The Democratic Party. They're not expanding beyond the box. I don't see the Democratic Party as building a world house any faster than either party at this particular hour in this country, which forces me to think outside of the political box, the frames of reference that create the social edifice itself, because I cannot force myself to be limited. That does not make a Republican out of me. I ain't doing that, and I'm not voting for this MAGA crowd. But I'm also saying that not everybody in the Democratic Party, with their lackluster behavior, their lack of fight, their lack of a cohesive message, speaks for me either. Johnny, you're forcing me, and the logic of this work is forcing me to think outside of the box, and really appeal and apply my own thinking to a new way of thinking.
Well, I hope so, Jesse. In fact, if I may, from the last segment, go back to Mandela, and then I want to also go to an author that you quoted earlier from that paper, Nia Eliasov. Mandela said, "The truth is that we are not yet free. We have merely achieved the freedom to be free, the right not to be oppressed. We have not taken the final step," Jesse, he says, "of our journey, but the first step on a longer and even more difficult road." You know, and that mimics, or not mimics, but copies King's own "We have difficult days ahead." Now listen to Nia Eliasov. One clear point after all this is that democracy is a constant experiment, and there will never be one equilibrium that could just settle things once and for all. Clever and selfish people will always try to undermine it, and depending upon how well the rest of us can protect democracy, the selfish people might prevail. Now, the question is, are selfish people only found in one party or the other? To your point about who truly represents us, what is this representative democracy all about? Eliasov is saying, and I believe that Mandela was saying, and certainly King is saying, we have to take responsibility ourselves as people working together to create the kind of world house we want. We can't leave it to others to determine that for us, nor can we leave it for them to do the work. And that's what he's talking about, King, when he says that Rip Van Winkle was sleeping through a revolution. He was allowing someone else.
I know I'm opening up a can of worms here at the end of our program, and so we're going to be discussing this over a number of weeks, including the complete finishing of this work. But, you know, the only liberty that I've known in my frame of reference has been white liberty. I want to go to their schools. I want to live in their neighborhoods. I want to eat the food that they eat. I want to go to the restaurants that they go to. All I know is white liberty. All I know is white liberty behavior. That is the ability to do with myself as I choose. Abraham Lincoln would say that would be my liberty. Or some people on the other side of the liberty equation believe that liberty is to do with other selves as they choose, including not pay them or provide them with health care. But both sides are struggling for something tied to their liberty, the freedom to do as they choose with themselves, which is best expressed by our movement. It's also expressed by the LGBTQ community at this hour. The freedom to do and be is their right? And then there's this other group that's in our economic system, which is the freedom and the liberty to do what they want with other people, with their labor and their work and what they have to offer, which is their definition of liberty. And as I read Frankel, and as I read your work here, and as I reflect upon King, I'm tired of white definition of liberty. I'm tired of pursuing their liberty at 60. And I now know why Abraham Lincoln chose emancipation over liberty. I need to be emancipated, and I don't want to be confused with the debate over their liberty, this group, or this group's definition of liberty. I want to be, the unique event is my emancipation from the debate and the disagreement over what constitutes their liberty, because they will take a liberty with you.
Yeah.
Because that's their liberty.
So Jesse, remember how King defines liberty. King defines it as the ability to deliberate, to decide, and then to act. That's how King defines liberty, how he defines freedom. One's ability to deliberate, that is, to engage in the discussion about how things are to be part of the conversation, to be at the table when the decisions are made, and then to collectively decide, to be part of the decision-making process. But it doesn't stop there, Jesse. It then is to be part of the action itself. So King says liberty, again, freedom is the ability to deliberate, to decide, and to act. The problem is we don't always get to participate in any one of those or in all of those. The question is, how do we organize and mobilize ourselves to deliberate, to decide, and to act on those issues that impact the quality of our lives?
Johnny, we have about 3 minutes before the end of our program. It's a dark hour in our nation's history when I reflect upon it in time as a result of my understanding of over time to arrive at the end time.
Yes.
Johnny, is there a word of hope in the present?
Wow. I knew that question was coming. Of course, it comes at the end of every hour that we're together, Jesse. And as we started the program, even before I entered the program, I asked myself, what would I say when Jesse says, Johnny, give us a word of hope? And I think in a word, the word of hope is hope itself. We have to hold on to hope. We give up hope, we've given up. And so, irrespective of the challenges and the opportunities that confront us, we have to stay in the way. We have to hold on to hope. And we have to work toward that which hope offers. And that's the very vision that we have for ourselves and the world we live in.
I'm hopeful that the idea of hope brings us together. But you showed me something. Hope isn't enough. I've got to act.
You have to act.
We have to engage it. To be hopeful without action is a kind of anemic love. It's almost reading a Shakespeare novel every day and walking through a garden. But hope with action, we come into contact with human beings who are on life's Jericho roads. They are people who we disagree with. They're people who we don't give up on. And my father said it this way when he was running for president in 1984 and 88. I don't care what color the hand is that reaches into the pit or into the ditch that pulls me out. If I reach up and there is a hand, whether it be red, yellow, brown, black, or white, and it wants to help me out of the pit that I find myself in, I'm only asking someone to extend it. And I will do everything within my power to extend it myself when I see my neighbor on life's roadside, struggling with the difficulties and the choices that really at this hour consume our national existence. We must never give up. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Thank you, Johnny Mack. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Until tomorrow.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore is condemning the